Wow. And we are live. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, whatever applies to you, please have it, receive it as it is. Tonight, I want to welcome again Tim Wagner. It seems like we only just did another session a few days ago. In fact, it was 2 weeks ago. And we are now here again to chat with the Awakened Dialogues with Tim and Karen. And we are here to chat about what we talked about we would do last time, which was talk about your purpose, your why you are here, why we are here. You know, I personally believe that every one of us is here on this earth, you know, in the country we're in the area that we're living in, with the people around us, for a reason, to do a job. And the job, in my opinion, is something much, much bigger than ourselves, something much, much bigger than our immediate role or job, like bringing up our family or supporting our wife and children, or husband and children, or, you know, our children and grandchildren. Personally, I believe that it's the job we're here to do is something for mankind, something for humanity, or something for a group of people. And it was some years ago that I went through a process with a mentor to discover, and we did 2 whole weekends actually, to full on whole weekends, to work out what our purpose was. And we delved deep into it, the people who, you know, I was doing it with, and myself. So on that note, I've been rambling on. I want to welcome Tim and say, hi, Tim. Lovely to have you here. I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight and to find out what you're going to bring to the table too. So welcome.
Thanks a lot, Karen. Absolutely wonderful to be here. Lovely to see you guys. Well, I can't see you online. I hope you're streaming in and listening to the recording. I love these dialogues, and that's why it's just the Awakened Dialogues, just an open chat. It's not scripted. We don't know where this is going to go. So if you've got a question, you can actually lead our conversation in different directions. And this is where I've got some questions for you, Karen, because this is where we actually learn so much from each other's journeys. And isn't that what we actually do, is share our mess of where we've come from to create a message so that somebody else who's listening can go, okay, I can do that too. I resonate with that. That's me. Maybe if I follow a similar path, I truly can find that purpose. And sometimes I feel that the search for purpose and meaning can just take us down a rabbit hole and get people so caught up in their heads and frustrated, when often it's right in front of us. So I want to hear, Karen, from you. What was a key turning point in you identifying your purpose and leading you on this path now? Because what you're doing now is not where you started out in that traditional job or career. Okay, let's be polite, a couple of decades ago.
Oh, you're too kind.
What was that? Was there something, a key moment of realization when you said, that's my service to society? Because that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yes, Tim. Well, as I say, went through a process where we asked a lot of very deep questions, and then it was, and why, and why, and why, and why, and what does that mean, and why do you, feel that way? And I started out by looking at, and this is what I suggest to people who are looking for what their big why is, what their purpose on this earth is. And I started out, we started out by being told what presses your buttons. Okay, what makes you get upset when you see something going on? If you're watching a movie, or if you're out out with other people, what is it that rocks you up, makes you happy, makes you sad, has you feel emotion because of something that's going on? Okay. And for me, I realized that what it was for me, or I realized some things that became aware for me, was that all through my life, I had been a person who rebelled against being told what to do, a person who rebelled against conformity, a person who rebelled against, like my school teachers and school mom, my anyone that said you have to do this without giving me adequate explanation and reason so that I could get on board and understand why that was a rule or why I had to do it, I rebelled against. And so I rebelled quite a lot in my young days. For example, most of you know now that I was taught to ride a motorcycle when I was very young. I was actually taught to ride a motorcycle when I was 12 years old. And I was really fortunate that my dad brought us up to be able to think, well, it doesn't matter if you're a girl or you're a boy, you can do whatever, you can do anything. And we came from a family of, my dad was a motorcycle mechanic when he was young, and he was an automotive, engineer or technician for cars when I was a child. He didn't do motorcycles, but it was his passion. And he and my brother initially would ride trials bikes, which are the bikes that they take up very, very steep hills that are almost vertical, and challenge themselves to do that and go through rivers or creeks and things that are quite challenging. And then my dad said, well, you can learn to ride, Karen, not just my brother, but you can learn to ride. And so he had one of these, it was a 250 Villiers. If anyone old out there knows about motorcycles, they'll know what it is. And it was taller than me for me to put my feet down. And we were in this paddock out there with the other riders who were, doing this trials riding. And, he taught me how to ride. And I learned how to ride my first motorcycle then. And then he said to me, when you're 15, because in those days in New Zealand, you could get your license when you're 15. When you're 15, you can get your own motorcycle and use it to ride to school. So as it happened, I did use it as my form of transport, because we had a bit of a distance between where we lived and where my college was, or high school as they call it here in Australia. And then I got another motorcycle that was bigger when I was 16. And unfortunately, it was a two-stroke, which means that you've got to use a lot of gears all the time, up and down. And I left home this day to go into Wellington City from Lower Hutt, and it was missing, because they get a bit oiled up sometimes, those two-strokes. And so I remember now, you sent me a motorcycle photograph, so you're interested in motorcycles too, Tim, and you have a dream. So anyway, I take off onto the motorway, and I just lat it through the gears, basically, first gear, second gear, take it right up the revs as high as it needs, and just take it through the gears to try and clear it out, never looking at my speedo. And then I was in top, it was 6 gears, I was in top gear, and then I sort of looked in my rear vision mirror, and I saw this light, this police, we had traffic cops in those days, and I saw this traffic cop light behind me. I thought, oh God. Okay, so I pulled over, and this very aggressive traffic cop, comes up to me, and he says, do you know what speed you were doing? I said, no, actually, I have no idea. I wasn't looking at my speedo. I was just taking it through the gears. And he said, well, and these are the days we had miles an hour, I was 16, right? You had miles an hour, not kilometers an hour. And he told me I was doing something like over 90 miles an hour, and I don't know what the speed limit was, but it was obviously over the speed limit. And he said to me, you know what? I didn't know what kind of bike you were on, and you were going so fast that I radioed through a roadblock ahead to stop you. And this machine was known to have drum brakes that faded when you put the brakes on, so they weren't very good, especially if you were going quite fast. And I thought, oh my goodness, thank goodness I didn't come around a bit of a bend and come up against a roadblock, because I might not have been able to stop. So anyway, that happened. He gave me a ticket for doing this excessive speed. And, my dad said to me, Karen, if you want to, you can go to court and defend yourself. So at 16 years old, as I said to you, I was a rebel. I thought, well, I'll take this blimmin' thing to court. I will defend myself. I will cross-examine this traffic cop, because I did my research and found out that in those days, I did my research in those days and found out that they didn't have radars or anything, and they had to follow you for half a mile to set the speed that they were finding you for. And I worked out where he pulled out, because I knew exactly where he pulled out. I think it was on the details, and where he pulled me over was not half a mile. So I crossed it. So I got to the first courtroom, and the judge says to me, "What do you plead?" And I said, "Not guilty." And he said, "Why are you pleading not guilty?" I said, "Your Honour, I don't think my bike would go that fast. And besides, I can't afford to pay a fine." And he looked at me and he said, "My nephew's got one of these bikes, and I know that it's been electronically tracked or tested to do 103 miles an hour." I didn't even know that. It was the fastest 250 they'd made at that time, by the way. And he said, "So don't you tell me that bike can't go that fast. And who bought the bike for you?" And I said, "Oh, my dad did, Your Honour." And he said, "Well, perhaps your dad can pay the fine." So anyway, as it happened, I was very lucky that I didn't have this magistrate or judge, because I had to go to another courtroom because I was doing a not guilty plea. So I went to another courtroom, and there I got a new judge, and the new judge listened to me present my case and cross-examine this traffic cop. And I got off on the technicality that he hadn't followed me or couldn't prove that he'd followed me for half a K.
Wow.
So the reason for my story is that as I went through this process to discover my why, I realized that all through my life I had pushed up against regulations, against being forced to do things, against doing the status quo and conforming. And so after a lot of work and seeing what pressed my buttons, don't tell me what to do, right? I realized that my why is freedom for humanity.
Wow.
Freedom for humanity, yeah. And so,
how old were you when you found that out? Sorry for interjecting.
Oh, it was only no, it's fine. That was probably about 20 years ago. So I was in my probably mid-40s. I'm 66 now.
Nice. And still riding 66. I've seen the bikes.
No, I'm not riding anymore. I had a big skid down the road, which I wrote about on LinkedIn just recently.
Was that the end of the? Okay.
That was in 2010, and what was really hard about that was I just got out of that business I talked about on Boss Lady Summit. If anyone saw it, we just closed it down in February and exited it, and then I went on a motorcycle trip and had the accident, and I had no business, no income, like nothing to support me for months, and I was off work for months. I couldn't drive or anything. But anyway, that's another story. So, I was probably in my mid-40s when we did that work, and it was very empowering. It was like, wow, now I know why I have these feelings and beliefs about things. And I decided that because of that, I did come across at the same time a dream that, and because I'd started doing extracurricular study, boot camps, training, all that kind of thing on investment and property. And that was when I started to attend all of these, and there was always something in them about the mindset, the mind shift, how our thoughts and what we focus on give us our results. And I can remember going, wow. No, I'd never heard of it before. Nowadays they do teach a bit of this, but before I'd never heard of anything about it. And these were top entrepreneurs around the world whose trainings and boot camps and things I was attending. And I remember making a decision and having a dream that I would bring that education to entrepreneurs and business owners, and what it would have been like if I had known that when I was young, starting out. So, but it's freedom. So what I coach people is freedom from fear, freedom from doubt, doubt about themselves, financial, by learning how to overcome the obstacles and the limiting beliefs, they'll get financial freedom, learning how to be focusing on their dream, their goal, and have peace, have that peace, have that fulfillment in life that you get when you know you're doing what you're passionate about and you're doing what you love and you're serving your purpose. Because everything I do now, every decision I make, I go, will this serve my purpose? And when we learned about our purpose, they said, you'll never achieve it, Tim. It's something that's so big, so much bigger than yourself, that you can never go, that's it, I've achieved my purpose in life. You'll never achieve it. You're always working on it. You're always doing things towards it. But if you think if it's something you can achieve, it's not your purpose. It's not big enough. So that's my view about it, and that was what I learned. And so now I always think, okay, is this going to further me towards working on my purpose? Is this going to help me achieve what it is I'm attempting to do, which is provide freedom for humanity? And I can see that I'll never be able to say I've done it, but what I can do is contribute to people's lives in a way that to help them have more freedom. In every way. Yeah.
Amazing. There's so many nuggets in there. The one that jumps to mind is it took 20 years for you to go through a journey of all your experiences, jobs, businesses to find that purpose.
Yeah.
So if there's anybody here who thinks, well, I've been working. Right. Yeah.
Because I talked to my mum about it and she said, oh, I've never thought about it. I have no idea.
But that's the thing. People, that's where people get stuck, is they don't think about it, and then they go, well, it's 20 years, 30 years. For me, it was over 30 years before I found my purpose. What your journey is so amazing on is that what you're focusing on now, freedom, is what you were looking for when you were 12, 13, 14. That's where the bikes come in. And I know as an avid motorcyclist that it's that freedom when you're out on the road. It's so different from driving a car. That's why I love cycling, because you're free. And so now you fill the void that there was this driving factor when you were a child. And sometimes as we're going through our corporate careers, we need to look back and go, well, what were we passionate about? What were we seeking when we were young? Go back to 6-year-old Tim, 10-year-old Tim, 15-year-old. What made you happy then? What were you looking for then? What was exciting for you back then can often be what your purpose should be and is now. But we just get caught up and trapped in indoctrinated systems, in schooling, in being told what to do when you're in school, a career guidance counselor, your parents, the siblings, the government goes and tells you this what to do. And so we forget about what our true inner values and passion are from when we were a child. And now that becomes something later in life that you realize, but that's what I should have been doing. So why are we never taught this at school? Now that opens a whole nother can of worms. Is how come we're not actually helped identify what our real purpose is, but we're indoctrinated into one way of thinking. And so the shift, and exactly what you're talking about is you'll never fully fulfill your purpose. It's a moving goalpost. It will always move. And that's exactly what should happen, because that continues for you to grow and go to the next extreme and learn more and identify more. I remember for years when my son was a teenager, and he was a very outspoken, well spoken young guy. But as a teenager, he always, I know everything. Don't they? That's what kids, I know everything. And then I point out to him, you don't know what you don't know until you know what you don't know. Exactly. It's always going to change. There's always going to be more. We know so little, but finding that, and the self-fulfilling part of life when you have actually worked out and you know your purpose. How you get up in the morning is different. How you act in the every day is different. And you said, and I this is very, very close to me as well. Once you know your purpose, every decision that you make, you align to that purpose. So it becomes your lighthouse.
Yeah, it's easy.
It becomes.
Doesn't it?
You don't sit and question, should I do this? Shouldn't I do that? It's quite easy. You look at this opportunity, this challenge, this obstacle, whatever it is that you've got, what direction you're going. So, well, is it aligned to my purpose? And if the answer is yes, keep going. If the answer is no,
drop it. Yeah.
It makes it so much easier. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's my journey of my purpose was very different.
Yes, please share.
I was in corporate hospitality for 27 years. I did what we're told to do. But I was a rebel when I was young because I questioned authority. I questioned the church. I used to, at school, I was in boarding school in the UK. I left South Africa when I was 14, went and finished school, my last 2 years of school in the UK. And they've got this ridiculous rule. You're not allowed to walk on the grass. Sorry. I'm from Africa, South Africa. We walk barefoot everywhere. We go everywhere. I walk on the grass. There'd be a sign, do not walk on the grass. I think, why? Nobody could ever tell me why. So I walked on the grass. I'd be in front of the headmaster.
Yeah.
I said, well, why not? No, you're not allowed to. But why? Help me understand. Just what you're asking. Why? And I, for years, asked that question, why? And if I couldn't get an answer that satisfied myself, I would just go and do it anyway. And I did that but then I lost my direction when I got stuck in doing the job. Get the career, get promoted, get married, have kids, buy the house, go into debt, get the car, go into more debt, and got caught up in the cycle of this career. And in hospitality, it's 7 days a week, 365. And in the end, I sold my soul to the devil.
Yeah.
But the push, when that was hunting, that was aiming for money. But inside, I knew I was on the wrong path because it didn't fit. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel right. And that disconnect from my true purpose, from my true me, and what I was doing was so intense that in the end, it resulted in me saying, that's it. I'm out. I'm done. And that was 2018. I walked out of a high-paying job. I was near on burnout. We've discussed that already.
Yes.
And I knew that something had to change. And that became then my journey to find what is my purpose and what is my path. And that becomes the exciting part, is when you start asking all of these questions. What should I be doing? Where am I actually going? I thought I'd be further ahead in life by now.
And why am I here?
Why am I here?
Why am I here?
Why am I here? There's got to be more. There's got to be more to my purpose in this world than just making money. And no, how can I be of service to other people? Where do I provide value in other people's lives? And that then became my hunt and my discovery, which in the end only came about when I shed and got rid of all the traditional trappings. We sold our house. The wife and I made a big decision just after the whole pandemic mess, and world was just starting to open up. They hadn't woken up yet, but it was just opening up. And we said, that's it. We need out of this. Get rid of that family home. Most of our possessions, donated to charity, gave to friends, put what we really wanted in a storage unit. And we said, that's it. We bought a van, converted it, traveled South Africa with our 2 dogs for a year and a half. Just to get out.
The answer. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's a little bit of the rebel again. And we
did
that.
What did you come up with, Tim?
Well, that was, so during this time was the first period of my life where, without all the extra burdens of the job and the boss and the career and the house and paying the bills. Look, we still had bills to pay, but I'd built myself up businesses on the side, which I was earning passive income. But for the first time, I could actually think freely. And I went and attended a lot of seminars, a lot of conferences, but for the first time where I could actually focus clearly without getting distracted. And I went on, one of them was, many of them were paid and many of them was free. There's a huge amount of free information available. And one of the workshops I went on was by Dr. John DeMartini. He's the guy that has for 5 decades been focusing on teaching and sharing to help people understand their value. What are your values? And when I did that workshop, I'd done one years ago before, but it didn't have meaning for me. When I did it again, I looked at the results of this. And the results of my true values is wellness, wealth, and wisdom. Well of mind, body, and spirit, health, wealth, but not only wealth financially, wealth
covers
completely, everything, wealth of and then wisdom, which is knowledge. Now that I discovered going through this exercise, I'm looking at this information, wellness, wealth, and wisdom come up as my 3 key value principles in my life. And in 2018, I'd started a business called Wellness, Wealth, and Wisdom Legacy. Helping you create a legacy around your wealth and wellness and wisdom to outlast you in life. And I just started that business because it sounded cool. It sounded like a good idea. I was doing a lot of online trading and educating and speaking and talking and promoting of teaching on cryptocurrencies and wealth creation and the true economy. I had a workshop called the Wealth Thinking Workshop to help people understand everything I was learning and applying. I was then sharing and teaching. So when I did this, that's when the light bulb was that a moment of understanding, of clarity. And I went, but I know what my purpose is. I went from a knowing to a complete understanding. And that became the journey leading me to what now I call myself the professional pointer, where I created the program to help people identify their life purpose and meaning and where they are in society. And I focus with people in corporate who have reached that point of life, which was my journey. It was 48. It was 47, 48 when I said, that's it, I'm out of here. Because I was asking those questions, there's got to be more. But I didn't know who to speak to, didn't know the questions to ask, didn't know where to go, didn't know who to trust. There was a wealth of information that I had to sift through in order to find that path. And now, wake up in the morning, I know motivated, passionate, excited, know exactly where I'm going, know what I'm doing, know where I'm going. And it's a consistent energy that you've got inside. There's no need to find it from an external source because it's all inside of you. And when you know it, it just exudes and it's outside and it's energetic and it's passionate and you're excited about it. And you talk about it freely. You're not, you don't procrastinate on anything. You don't worry about it because you know where you're going. Exactly what you spoke about, Karen. It's your light. It's your path. So, that's the journey. And if anybody's listening to this who's in corporate and asking these questions and who says, well, I've been doing this for 20, 30 years. I'm now 50. That midlife crisis point of asking those questions. The kids have left home. Your world starts to change. You start to go, well, what do I do? It's not a midlife crisis. It's a midlife reset.
Yeah.
That was my view on it. There's a whole lot of opportunity available if you know how to ask the right questions. But at the same time, not getting too overworked or worked up in purpose and hunt for my purpose. And sometimes it can just be bashed a little bit too much when all you're looking for is trying to find your real path and where, as you said, Aaron, you can give back to society. Now.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I want to share something on that note. It's a quote. I love quotes. And it's a quote by a Persian poet named Rumi. And one of his favorite little short quotes that I sign off all my emails on is live life as if it's rigged in your favor. But this quote is different, and it's about purpose. And it goes like this. It's called Know Thy Purpose. 800 years ago, it's a little story. A Persian poet named Rumi said this, knowing thy purpose. It's as if a king has sent you into a foreign, distant land with one specific task to accomplish. Now, you could accomplish 100 other things, but in the end, if you have failed to accomplish the one thing for which you have been sent, in the end, it will be as if you have accomplished nothing. Very profound.
Extremely.
So knowing your purpose, as you said, it's the rudder for your ship. We say it helps you to navigate your daily life. Knowing your purpose makes life's decisions easier to make. And once you know your purpose and then you make decisions and you become, because many of us don't know how to make decisions. We make kind of sort of maybe decisions around something we think we might do if we think we're going to have the opportunity to be successful, if we think perhaps the economy is going to be kind to us, or the competitor isn't going to be too difficult to compete against, or if it works out, or if we don't make decisions and commitments very easily, very well. And so what we say is, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, a chance to pull back, always ineffectiveness. And it's concerning all acts of initiative and creation. There's one elementary step, and this is Bob Proctor's words. One elementary step, making the decision and then taking action.
Yeah.
So knowing your purpose allows you to then make the decisions. Like I said, it's a rudder for your ship. It helps you to navigate your daily life and make decisions easier. And then once you make decisions and you are committed to them, you say, this is what I'm doing, and I know why. This is what I am doing, or this is what I've decided to do. Then it's a very different place that you're coming from to that kind of maybe sort of life that we're also used to operating within. So it's like saying, I want to go on holiday, and you go to the travel agent and you say, hey, I want to go on a world trip. And the travel agent says, oh, sit down, and thinks this is going to be a big one, right? This is a good one. Sit down, I'll get you a coffee. Would you like a wine or whatever, right? Whatever they do when they think they've got a big deal coming in. And then the travel agent sits here and says to you, well, okay, where do you want to go? And you go, well, I'm not sure exactly. I want to go maybe to Europe, but I've been to Spain and I might go back there, but I'm not sure. And, I'm not sure if I want to go to Paris or France or Italy. And so the travel agent is getting a bit frustrated by this time and saying, well, we've got lots of brochures on all these places if you can tell me where you want to go. But decides to change tack and says, well, when do you want to have this world trip? And you say, well, I don't know when I can afford it, and when I'll have the money, and when I can get time off work or off my business. And you haven't actually made a decision at all about going on a world trip, right? And until you say, I want to go here at this time, because time is another important part of the equation by when, until you make that decision and that commitment, you can't walk out of that travel agency with an itinerary. And while you've got that kind of maybe sort of answer going on, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Yep. 100%.
Never.
That's
it's always going to be a bucket list. It's always going to be a one-day thing. And there's a story about Sir Edmund Hillary when he conquered Mount Everest, and William Murray, who is the man who went with him, one of the men who went with him. And they talk about how exactly this happened, is that Sir Edmund Hillary, he might not have even been a sir then, was holding a meeting for people and invited William Murray to this meeting to talk about being part of the team. And William Murray went along and he said, "Are you in?" And William Murray said, "Well, I would like to, but I don't have the money." Told him how much it was going to be, a few $1,000s. And he said, "I don't have the money." And so he went away and said, "I can't do it." Second time, same thing happened. So we had another meeting, another year or another time. William Murray went along and he said, "I'd like to go, but I don't know where I'm going to get the money." Third or fourth time this happened, William Murray decided to take a different approach. He decided that he would get together the deposit. That's all, $300. And he went along and he said, "Yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put my deposit down and I'm making the commitment. I'm going to do it." He had no idea how he was going to get the rest of the money. But what happens when we make a decision and a commitment that we're going to do this thing is we don't have to know the how, but we all get trained and think and have beliefs that before we can make a decision and a commitment, we've got to know how we're going to end up with that result at the end, how we're going to get through everything. But the thing is, that's not how it works. When you say and put it out there that you're going to do something, the how will show up. Situations, circumstances, people who can help you, signs, all sorts of things come to us, opportunities. Our reticular activation system gets kicked into place and we see them when we didn't see them before. And that's what happened with William Murray, is that he somehow got the money together. And that was the time that they conquered Mount Everest. He was on that trip.
Amazing.
Yeah. And that's what we do all the time, is we don't make decisions, we don't make commitments, and it never happens.
It doesn't happen. I'm going to tie this back a little bit before that's such an important story. But a little bit before, you were talking about making decisions. So I want to just tap into something which people identify as a weakness or a problem, and that's called procrastination.
Same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. When I was in corporate, you apply for a job, you fill in the application forms, and they always have this daft section, strengths and weaknesses. And I was never maybe critical enough of myself at the time. I'd sit there, weaknesses. I don't know, procrastination. Sometimes procrastinate on things. It takes me too long to sometimes get things done. First, years down the line, I started to learn that procrastination is actually a strength. And often we'll look at something which we've been taught is a weakness, but every single weakness that you have is actually a strength when you know how to change your paradigm and you're thinking about it. And here's why I've learned that procrastination is now a strength. It's a sign. And if we can learn to look at every single obstacle, challenge, falling off having a crash on your motorbike, to getting fired from a job or retrenched, which was my first sign, as a sign and not a challenge or problem, you'll change how you see it. So looking at procrastination, the question would be then, but why am I procrastinating on this? And when you understand what your purpose is, the procrastination is a sign that this thing that you are feeling that you need to do, you must do, not that you want to, you feel obligated to do. The reason you're not doing it is because it's not aligned to your values or your purpose. In other words, your true direction. That this task, project, is taking you off your track. And so now you're procrastinating against it. And Dr. John DeMartini says you do three things in the times that you procrastinate. You either have to change your reason for doing it, your why. You have to dump it because it's not aligned, or outsource it. Give it to somebody else whose values are aligned to that project. And when you start to understand this, you realize why some people will do one thing extremely well. And they'll love it. You don't have to ask them to do it. They're passionate about it. They do it phenomenally well. But then somebody else will take exactly the same thing and they suck at it.
Because they're not passionate about it.
Passionate. It's not part of their purpose. So you got a choice when you're procrastinating on something. Stop. Why? Now, I got a very specific example on that. A couple of years ago, before BC, I call it, BC, I used to run a workshop called the Wealth Thinking Workshop. I mentioned briefly just now, which was just lessons I was learning. In 2018, I really wanted to find out the truth behind the economy. What is inflation actually? Because we're not taught this stuff. Not even accountants are taught this stuff. The truth.
Right.
What is this? What does it mean when America goes and prints $7 trillion? What's it got to do with me? So I went and studied this. I researched, I hung out with wealthy people. And what I realized as I'm learning this stuff and thinking, wow, okay, now, good grief. So people started in my network, started asking me questions. I created a workshop. Anyway, brilliant. I loved doing this stuff, and it really got me outside of my comfort zone. And I started to really, but then everything shut down, and that course, which was done live, sort of went to sleep. But then my networks, the people were still asking me questions. And then an author, a South African lady who written her own book, was asking me questions. I said, it's interesting. I used to do a workshop. And this was before we started to really meet again. And she says, why don't you write a book? Just an ebook, an online book. I was like, yeah, okay, I could do that. I never did it. And somebody else would ask me, and I'd share, and they'd say, you know this stuff, but where can I get it? I thought, well, I've been told I should write an ebook. I've got all the information. I never did it. And then one day I'm sitting down there after, I don't know, a dozen people asked me for more information. I share. And I asked myself, but why aren't I doing this? I've got this information. I'm passionate and excited about it. I love sharing it. People want it because they're asking me questions. Why aren't I doing it? Why am I procrastinating? And I realized that my reason for writing it was because they were asking me for it. And that wasn't my purpose. My purpose is my value principles is to learn, exemplify, so apply in my life, disseminate, break down something which can be perceived complex, and teach it. So as soon as I attached the reason for writing this ebook to my purpose, 1 week I wrote it, second week I edited, third week I published it.
Very good.
Because I redirected it. And the title of the book, it's outdated now because so much has happened. This is now 2 years ago. The title of the book is 5 Reasons Why Your Neighbor's Cat Has More Wealth Than You.
I'm just going to put a light on because it's getting a bit dark here.
Yeah, no problem.
And another light, and I don't know if that's going to make any difference, but
yeah, you
really. A little bit, yeah. Wow. Oh, that's awesome, Tim. I love that story. And so you've written it.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. I've had to put certain things aside to focus on my key area, but I'm still very passionate about it. I still got it. Just that the numbers are now outdated because it was 2 years ago, and America hasn't printed $7 trillion. They've printed a whole lot more, and there's way more going on in the world's economy. But the purpose behind the story is when it comes to procrastination, there's a reason. And if we learn to look at the signs around us, why things happen in our lives, and you look at it from a different paradigm, a different perspective, so you can actually then move forward and move through these things. And that's where you were talking about finding that motivation and inspiration to do these things. And if you're not inspired to do something, there's a reason. Don't beat yourself up about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is so easy for us to do. We look at the negative in it all the time. Oh, and it's a problem and a challenge. And then I go, wow, you got a challenge. That's so amazing. It's a sign. There was something else I was going to speak about, but I can't remember what it was. So back over to you about procrastination.
Well, just on that point, if you're not inspired, let's go back to our education system, our traditional education system. if you're not passionate about something, you're not good at it. So all the kids who don't do well, and I help with an autistic child at the moment, and he's in a normal school, right? He is so clever. He blows me away with all the history he watches YouTube. He learns about, he loves ships. So he knows all about Titanic and all the other big cruise ships that have been around over the years, and where they've gone and what they've done and what they look like and how many passengers they could hold and everything. He knows all about history. He was talking to me about Putin the other day. He's 9 years old. And I said to him, how do you know this stuff? Well, he said, I research it. I research it on YouTube or on whatever. And yet he fails all his exams at school. You would believe he was a dunce, because we don't teach our kids at school to focus. And this is something that Roger James Hamilton teaches with his Genius Institute, with his Genius schools, that we don't teach our kids and help them to learn about what their strengths are, what their passions are. We say, oh, you're not good at that, so you have to study that. You have to work harder on that. You have to, because you have to reach a certain level with all the curriculum for your age. And so our whole system, and this is another conversation, obviously you're well aware of it, Tim, but our whole system is set up in a way that is not to help people to think for themselves, to do well for themselves. It's not there to help people become independent and become wealthy in the fullest sense of the word, and that's another conversation. So I just want to come back to, you were talking about, I want to come back to motorcycles, because not only do we want to know what our purpose is, and we want to know where we're going with that, so that we can make decisions and make commitments. And the important thing is that we focus on what we want, because getting into quantum physics and the universal laws, the universe believes that what we pay our attention to is our intention. In other words, what we focus on is what we want. And the job of the universe, or whatever you think of it, the cosmos, or however you see it, some people say God. The job is to give us what we want. We're always forever growing, and it wants us to grow and become more. That's part of our evolution. So I can remember one day this is a great lesson on you get what you focus on. The lesson is you get what you focus on. It's the law of non-resistance. It's one of the 12 universal laws, and it says you get what you focus on. The law of non-resistance says what you resist persists. So if you're resisting something, you're focusing on it, and you will keep getting more. And so this is a lovely example of it. This particular day, we were going out on a motorcycle. We were on a motorcycle tour, me and my brother and two of his mates. And we all had what we call, they've got super bikes, which are like race V-twin motorcycles that they race on the track with indicators. It's basically what they're like. And I had a sports bike, which was a little bit smaller, but it went very well, 650, the one I talked about in my LinkedIn post. And he came we were filling up and getting ready to go this morning to the some iconic races that are run every year in the North Island of New Zealand, called the Pairora races, and the road races. And they have all sorts of bikes, and they have the sidecars, and the old guys in the sidecars, and they had classic bikes and all sorts of things, and they road race them every year in about February. And we were off to there, but we'd met up with two of the guys from Wellington, And my brother was living in the Bay of Islands at the time, which is the far north, and I was in Auckland. So I was in the middle. So my brother came down, picked me up, or, met with me. I was on my own motorcycle. And we met the other guys in this place called Taumarunui, which was on the other side of the island. We went to leave, and we all gassed up, and then they were all big bikes, as I say, the 2,000cc motorcycles guys left, and I took off, and there was one guy with me, and there was a noise in the front of my motorcycle, and I could hear it, kind of a scraping noise, and so I was trying to hear what it was as I took off, and the other guy behind me came up to me and said, what's wrong? I said, I've got this noise in my front wheel. And so we stopped, and he jumped on the forks and looked at it, and we sort of looked at everything. And he said, you've probably just got a stone in your brake disc. He said, why don't you just take off and just do a few little flicks, and we'll see if we can get it out. But anyway, before that happened, my brother came over to me before they left, and he said to me, Karen, we're going on these back roads. Some of them are single roads, right? And he said, they're single lanes. They're so small, such small roads. Some of them are single lanes. And we would ride the roads a bit like we were on a racetrack. We were careful, but we definitely rode. And so he said, look, if you come around, so we'd ride, nicely and as fast as we could, what we thought as fast as we could, as safely as we could. But, we'd be leaning those bikes around the corners as far down as we could get them. And so he said, if you come around a corner and there's an obstacle in your way. Now, this is a life lesson, remember. If there's an obstacle in your way, might be a boulder, it might be a tree branch, it might be another car. He said, don't look at the obstacle. Look for how you're going to get around it.
Yeah.
Look for how you're going to get around it. Look for the gap. And if you do that, you'll have a very high chance of missing the obstacle. But if you look at the obstacle, you'll most certainly almost hit it. You'll almost certainly hit it. And that's the rule of the law of non-resistance is focus on what you want. Focus on the gap. Focus on where you want to go, not the obstacle. Because we're always going to have obstacles and challenges that come up in life. And what do? We are trained to focus on our challenges. We are trained to focus on our problems. And what happens is we get more of the same.
Of the same. Exactly. So, it's the simple thing. For if I turn around to Karen and I say, Karen, don't think of an orange elephant.
Yeah, and you can't help it. Exactly.
Your mind's just going to picture an orange elephant.
Yeah. So that's the law of non-resistance. That is a universal law, and mark my words, we know now that these laws are as real, and they are working on us just like the laws of gravity every second of every day. Just like the laws of gravity or the laws of aerodynamics, they exist and they are part of our lives, and we are part of the universe, and that's how we interact.
Love that. Maybe this is a topic for next discussion, because you really remind me of what I've learned over the last, probably only year and a half around the law of attraction. We don't have to understand it. You know that when you jump off the side of the edge of a swimming pool, that you're not going to go up. You're going to go down and land in the water. And you know the water is going to cushion you.
Yeah.
Because of gravity. But do you actually understand the true scientific and all the stuff around how gravity works and how water works and all? No. You jump, you trust, you believe, you know. And that's one thing that I've had to learn around the law of attraction, around all of these amazing universal laws, is you don't have to understand how they work. You believe gravity's there. I know when I wake up tomorrow morning, I put my foot down out of bed, it's not going to hit the ceiling, it's going to go on the floor. And that's beautiful, beautiful principles that I love. Yeah. that what you resist persists. It reminds me of the story of the mirror principle. What you put out there, you get back. And if you're not sure what you getting back, look in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you project is what you're going to get. Now you can look at the mirror and you can focus and you can shout at, you can imagine, you can use your imagination, creativity to make the mirror smile back at you. It's not going to happen. You've got to smile, and only then when the mirror smiles back. You can't make the mirror smile first. But yet, how often do we do that? That we focus and we have our attention and we have, no, the mirror's going to smile, and the mirror's, and you focus it and you want to, and you meditate on it and you're putting it out there. The mirror's going to smile, and nothing happens because it's got to start. It's got to start with you. What you put out, you get back. And if you're putting out, don't hit the tree. You go around the corner, you're going to hit the tree. Happened to me a couple of months ago when I was running a half marathon. There was these huge cat eyes in the road. It was a long slope down. I did a wonderful talk on it. Long slope down. And I saw people, they were stumbling on and I'm thinking, wow, there's a lot of people in this race called the Two Oceans in Cape Town, South Africa. A lot of people running. And I thought, wow, okay, I've got to be careful. I want to run on the inside track where there's less people. And then somebody shouted, beware of the cat eye. Do you call them cat eyes?
Yes, we do. We do. I don't know if Australians do, Tim, but I do. Cats. Actually, we call them cat's eyes in New Zealand.
Right. It's those reflective lights.
Yes.
No. And somebody then shouted, beware of the cat eyes. They were quite big. And so I'm running, and it's a slide down. And I look, and I said in my head, don't trip on the cat eye.
And you tripped on it.
And there my toe clips that cat eye, and over I went. And I carried on. It was a rather painful run. But the moral of the story was I just beat myself up. It was like, you daft bugger. I know this. But still in that moment, say, don't trip on the cat eye, trip on the cat eye. Instead of stay upright, focus ahead.
Well, on that note, I think we should focus ahead, call it a night. It's been a fantastic discussion, Tim. We have so much we can talk about. Time just flies, doesn't it?
Yes. I love this. I love the dialogue. I love the conversation, the way that it's leading, and I hope there's some value in it for anybody or everybody that's listening.
So let's just think about, do you want to do something to do with the universal laws next time?
Oh, yes. You've got so much in you. With your quantum physics background and what you've manifested and created in your life, there's a lot there for us. And this is something which I think over the last few years, there's more and more people who are beginning to realize and understand that there's another way of doing things. And so to share this, in my perspective, my opinion, and I'm not a teacher on it, I'm still very much a student, I would love to hear more.
Let's look at that. Then next time we will come together to discuss the universal laws, and maybe I'll pick some of them and we'll go through them, or maybe we'll talk about something to do with them. I have one program that I coach, which is called Working with the Law, and it's by Bob Proctor and Mary Morrissey. Yeah.
Wonderful,
and I've got
wonderful.
A beautiful story to tell about that. But to start off,
I'm waiting for it. These 2 weeks are going to rush past. We'll see you in a fortnight. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Karen.
All right. Have a beautiful evening. Have a beautiful day, everyone. If you're in South Africa, for you, Tim, it's your day, isn't it? What time is it?
It is now 11:30.
All right. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks, but I'll probably see you before then.
Excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes. Ciao.
Good
Bye-bye.
night for me. Good morning to everyone else.